Smoke rose like a ghost over the ridge, black against the dying amber sky. Cheyenne crouched low in the brush, still as the earth, his fingers resting on the haft of his knife. The deer he had been stalking was long gone, frightened off by whatever chaos brewed beyond the ridge. But he didn't move. His heart beat slowly, steadily, the way he had trained it to under stress. Only his eyes shifted, scanning, narrowing. He smelled it before he saw it. Burnt canvas, scorched wood. And something worse, blood, faint but unmistakable. A camp had been attacked. Recently, his moccasins barely disturbed the pine needles as he moved through the woods. Birds had gone silent. The wind, dry and sharp, carried only the sound of flickering flame and the occasional groan of a timber collapsing in on itself. He reached the crest and saw the remains of a settler wagon train sprawled across the clearing like the bones of a picked-over carcass. Charred wagons still smoldered. A horse, half alive, thrashed weakly in its harness, its body torn open. Cheyenne's jaw clenched. He counted 3 bodies. All men. No movement otherwise. But movement wasn't always loud. He descended cautiously, eyes scanning, muscles tensed. The killers, whoever they were gone. But the silence didn't feel safe. It felt abandoned. His gaze passed over the wreckage and froze. Near the edge of the creek, tied to the wheel of an overturned wagon, was a girl. Her dress was torn, dirt and ash smudged her cheeks, but she wasn't lifeless. Her chest rose in shallow, ragged breaths. Long strands of blonde hair stuck to the blood on her forehead. She looked no older than 20. He approached slowly. Her eyes fluttered open when his shadow fell across her. Blue eyes, wide with terror. She tried to scream, but could barely make a sound. "I'm not one of them," he said, voice low even. She flinched as he knelt beside her, eyes darting to the knife at his belt. He saw it, how she saw him. A man with dark-skinned braids, strange clothes. In her world, he was likely no different from the ones who did this. But he didn't blame her. He just pulled a canteen from his satchel and tipped it gently to her cracked lips. She drank greedily, then coughed. "Tea, thank you," she rasped. He cut the ropes binding her wrists and ankles. She tried to sit up and screamed, her hand shooting to her side. "Ribs," he said. She nodded, grimacing. "Think they're broke. We need to move." "Who are you?" "Later." She hesitated, then nodded. Trust wasn't instant, but survival made quick partners of strangers. He carried her, cradled in his arms, her head resting against his shoulder. The scent of smoke clung to her hair. She barely weighed more than a bundle of firewood. The sun was almost gone, casting long, blood-orange shadows over the plains. Behind them, the wreckage crackled. His camp was small, hidden deep in the trees. A crude shelter of pine branches leaned against a rock face, a fire pit ringed with stones. He laid her down on a bed of furs and stirred the embers back to life. She watched him as he worked, wary but no longer panicked. "Your name?" she asked, voice faint. "Cheyenne." "That's not your name." "It's the one I kept." She studied him, confused, but didn't press. "Rachel." He gave a small nod and handed her a strip of dried meat. She tore at it like an animal. He set a pot over the fire, tossing in wild onion, squirrel meat, and water. "How long was I out?" she asked. "Hours. They killed them all. I saw." She stared into the fire, eyes unblinking. "My brother tried to fight. He told me to run. I didn't. I was too slow. Not your fault." Her shoulders shook, but she didn't cry. Not yet. The tears would come later, in private moments, when she felt safe enough to fall apart. "Why'd you help me?" she asked finally. He shrugged, stirring the pot. "You don't know me. I didn't need to." She looked at him again, eyes narrowing. "You speak too well to be just a scout." He smirked faintly. "I was raised by 2 tribes. One wore moccasins. The other wore boots and called each other sir. I never belonged to either." Rachel winced as she shifted. "That's a lonely way to live." "It's the only way that kept me breathing." Silence again, save for the bubbling stew and the distant call of a nightbird. The firelight flickered on their faces, painting shadows across Cheyenne's sharp features and Rachel's bruised, defiant beauty. "You think they'll come back?" she asked. "Maybe. Bandits sometimes return to strip the dead. You gonna kill them? If they try something. Something in his voice made her shiver. Not fear. Something older, deeper, like listening to a storm that hadn't yet broken. She closed her eyes. If I don't wake up, thank you. You will. You don't know that. I do. He stood watch most of the night, knife across his lap, back against the stone. The stars wheeled overhead, cold and brilliant. Wind whispered through the trees, but no threats came. Rachel slept in broken intervals, murmuring in dreams. Once she whimpered, "David, no." Cheyenne didn't move. He'd heard worse in his own sleep. By dawn, the smoke on the horizon had faded. The prairie stretched wide and silent, a golden sea beneath the first light. Rachel stirred, blinking up at him. "You stayed up." He nodded. Didn't trust the dark. She looked at him differently now. Not with full trust, but with less fear. "Where do we go now?" He looked out toward the rising sun, jaw tightening. "Somewhere they won't find you." "You mean us?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "Yeah, us." She pushed herself upright, groaning, but didn't complain. Pain, after all, was the only part of her life that still felt familiar. Cheyenne handed her a walking stick fashioned from a straight branch. She gripped it, then looked at him with something almost like a smile. "What do you think they wanted?" she asked. "Why do this?" He met her eyes. "Some men want gold. Others want revenge. But the worst ones? They just want to watch things burn." Rachel looked back at the ashes of her past, still curling smoke into the morning. Then she turned and followed him into the trees. Dawn broke like a whispered promise, stretching thin rays across the forest canopy. Rachel woke to the scent of pine needles and wood smoke, her body sore, her side throbbing. The pain anchored her in reality. No dream. The massacre had happened. Her brother was gone. Her world gone. Cheyenne sat a few paces away, sharpening a flint-tipped arrow with calm precision. His presence was silent, but not cold. There was a steadiness to him, like river rock, shaped by time, unmoved by storms. Rachel eased herself up on her elbow. "You always watch people sleep?" He didn't look up. "Only when they bleed in their dreams." She blinked, unsure if he was teasing her or stating a fact. Probably both. She tasted copper in her mouth. The memory of screams returned, but she shoved it down. "Where are we going?" she asked. "East," he said. "Away from roads. Away from trails." "Why not just head to the nearest town?" "You think those men stopped after the wagons burned?" Her heart clenched. "You think they're still looking for me?" He looked at her, eyes like flint. "They saw your face. Means you're a loose end." She exhaled shakily. "So what? You're dragging me into the woods until they give up. I'm keeping you alive until you can stand on your own." She stared at him. "And what then?" "Then you get to choose." His words landed like stone. Not cruel, just real. Rachel didn't know if she wanted to cry or scream or laugh at the absurdity of it all. Instead, she bit the inside of her cheek, nodded once, and began to pull on her boots. The day's journey was brutal. The terrain turned jagged, roots like twisted fingers underfoot, and the underbrush tore at Rachel's dress until it looked more like rags than clothing. She leaned on the walking stick he'd carved for her, every step jarring her ribs. Cheyenne moved like he was part of the forest, soundless and sure. He paused often, not to wait, but to scan the wind. His head cocked to sound she couldn't hear. Birds pausing, branches snapping too cleanly. At one point, he dropped to a knee and motioned her down. A single rider passed through the trees to their south, horse saddled with rough leather, rifle slung across his back. Rachel barely breathed. When the rider vanished, Cheyenne stood. "Not one of mine," he muttered. "Not one of yours either." They moved on. At midday, they reached a shallow stream that cut through the forest like a ribbon of glass. Cheyenne knelt, dipped his fingers, and nodded. "We cross." Rachel hesitated. The water looked harmless, but cold. "You ever think of asking?" He looked up at her, deadpan. Would it change the answer? She grunted, wading in. The icy water punched her legs with every step, and when she stumbled, he was there, gripping her arm before she could fall. They reached the far bank soaked and shivering. Cheyenne started a fire with practice speed, building a dry nest from pine bark and old moss. Rachel watched him, hugging her knees. "Why do you know how to do all this?" He glanced at her. "Grew up needing to." "That's not an answer." He added more tinder to the fire. "My mother died when I was 10. White folks didn't want me. My father's tribe had already turned their backs. So I went into the wild and listened to what it taught me." Rachel lowered her eyes. "You've been alone a long time." "Alone doesn't mean empty." She didn't reply. When the fire warmed her bones, she helped him strip bark for cordage. The silence between them began to feel less like distance, more like agreement. Later, they stumbled upon a broken shack in the trees, half a roof, rotting planks, and a rusted horseshoe nailed above the door. Rachel leaned against the frame, coughing. "Cozy," she muttered. Cheyenne cracked the ghost of a smile. "Don't get spoiled." They made camp there for the night. Rachel sat in the doorway, watching the sun sink behind the trees. She wanted to talk, but couldn't find the words. Her thoughts came in fragments: David's voice, her mother's lullaby, the screams, the fire. Then Cheyenne spoke, voice low, as if reading her thoughts. "You dream of them?" She nodded. "I dream of my sister," he said. "They burned our village when I was 16. Took her. I followed the smoke for days. Found her bones beside the river." Rachel's breath caught. "I'm sorry." "So was I," he said. But that didn't help her. A long silence passed. Then Rachel said, "They said you people were monsters." Cheyenne turned his head slightly, but didn't react with anger. "Then I met you," she continued. "And I realized monsters don't carry wounded girls through forests and fight off bounty hunters and cook squirrel stew." His brow twitched. "You calling my cooking monstrous?" She grinned. It surprised both of them. A moment later, he stood. "Get some rest. We move at dawn." Rachel settled onto the bedroll he made for her and stared up at the open patch of sky through the half-roof. Stars blinked coldly back at her. Somewhere in the night, an owl hooted. She thought she heard the howl of a wolf, far off. She didn't sleep long. A snapping twig jolted her awake. Cheyenne was already up, crouched low, bow in hand. He motioned for silence. Rachel strained her ears. Another crunch, closer this time. A man's voice, muffled, then laughter. More than one. Cheyenne whispered, 3 of them. Bounty men. Maybe scouts. What do we do? He gave her a look, calm, lethal. Stay here. She grabbed his arm. Don't go alone. But he was already gone. The forest swallowed him. Rachel crouched, trembling, heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. The minutes stretched. A shout rang out. Then 2 quick grunts. Silence. A gunshot cracked the night, then another. She waited, breath frozen. Footsteps returned. Cheyenne appeared from the darkness, blood on his sleeve, not his. His face was hard, unreadable. "They were looking for you," he said simply. Rachel looked past him, trying not to imagine the bodies. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He sat beside her. "Don't be." "But you had to, because of me. I've had to do worse for less reason." He pulled off his coat, revealing a shallow graze along his ribs. "You're hurt." "Just a scratch." Rachel reached for the kit in his satchel, fingers fumbling. "Let me at least clean it." He didn't argue. She dabbed the wound with a damp cloth, hands shaking. Their faces were inches apart. She smelled pine on his skin and something raw underneath, like rain on dry stone. "You never asked for this," she said. "No," he agreed. "But you didn't walk away." "No." Her fingers paused over the wound. "Why?" He looked at her, gaze steady. "Because even the wild doesn't turn its back on the wounded." They sat in silence until the fire died low. Before sleep took her, Rachel murmured, "I don't know what I would have done without you." Cheyenne didn't answer, but he stayed awake until the sky turned silver, watching the trees, listening for ghosts. By midday, the trees thinned and the land opened into a long stretch of sun-bleached grass and wind-worn stone. The air smelled of dust and old iron. Rachel leaned on her stick, squinting against the sun. Ahead, nestled in the crook of 2 hills, stood the remains of a mining town, wooden bones of buildings long since abandoned. Tin roofs sagged, window frames gaped like mouths mid-scream, and an old windmill creaked a rusty lullaby. Cheyenne slowed, eyes scanning every shadow. "We rest here." Rachel swallowed, voice dry. "You know this place?" He didn't answer at first. Then, "Used to live here. Years ago." She looked at him, eyebrows raised, but didn't press. His tone made it clear, this wasn't a place of fond memories. They entered cautiously, Rachel's footsteps dragging, Cheyenne silent. A sign swung from a rusted hinge above the saloon, Silver Hollow. Beneath it, the words "No dogs, no Indians" had been scratched deep into the wood. Rachel winced. Cheyenne's face didn't flinch. He passed under it like a man walking through old fire, immune to fresh burns. Inside, dust lay thick on every surface. Broken chairs, a piano with snapped keys, and an overturned table greeted them like the ghosts of a forgotten party. He led her to a back room, where light filtered through slats in the wall. A bed frame with no mattress. A chip basin. A mirror cracked down the middle. "This was my mother's room," he said quietly. Rachel sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, watching him move through the space, like a man feeling for lost time. He picked up a fragment of a broken bowl, then set it down again. "She worked here." "She tried to. When they let her. After my father died, we stayed a while. Then they got tired of pretending." Rachel's voice was soft. "You left." He nodded. "One morning, I woke up to find the door barred from the outside. Windows smashed. She told me not to cry. Just climb through and run." His jaw tightened. "So I did." Rachel stood slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "She didn't make it out. She gave them what they wanted. Bought me time." The silence after his words was thick as river mud. Rachel reached for his hand, but stopped just short. He didn't seem to notice. His eyes were locked on the mirror, and something inside him was far away. Outside, the wind picked up. Hoofbeats echoed faintly in the canyon. Cheyenne froze. Rachel turned toward the door. "Did you hear?" "Stay here." He slipped outside like a shadow, bow in hand, eyes scanning. From behind a warped building, 3 riders emerged, dust-covered men, rough around the edges, their faces marked with hunger and familiarity. The one in front dismounted slowly, his boots crunching gravel, the butt of a shotgun tapping his thigh. "Been a long time," the man said. "Figured you were dead." Cheyenne stepped forward, silent, his shoulders squared. Rachel crept to the door, peering through the crack. "You gonna speak?" the man asked. "Or are we still playing the silent mystic?" Cheyenne's voice was low and steady. "Didn't expect to see you here, Caleb." The man, Caleb, grinned. "Funny thing, I didn't expect to ride through these hills and hear folks whispering about a half-blood ghost traveling with a preacher's daughter." Rachel's heart stopped. "Didn't take long to connect the dots," Caleb continued. "You always did like saving strays. Guess this one's prettier than most." Cheyenne didn't move. Caleb took a step closer. "You should have stayed gone, brother." Rachel's stomach turned. "Brother." Cheyenne finally spoke. "You led the raid on her wagon." Caleb tilted his head. "Well, we didn't know she was yours at the time. Could have left her for the buzzards, but that wouldn't have been poetic. You knew there were children." Caleb shrugged. "Ain't no clean blood in this country. You taught me that." Cheyenne's jaw clenched. His fingers twitched near his knife. Rachel stumbled out of the doorway. "You're his brother," she said, her voice sharp, disbelieving. "You're the one who—" Caleb smiled at her like a wolf admiring a bleeding lamb. "Ain't she something? You sure know how to pick 'em." "Shut your mouth," Cheyenne growled. Rachel looked between them, mind spinning. "You never told me." "I didn't know," Cheyenne said. "Not until now. But you followed their trail. You knew it was familiar." He looked at her, eyes filled with something close to shame. "I hoped I was wrong." Caleb laughed, slow and cruel. "She doesn't know, does she? That you used to ride with me. That you helped me raid towns just like hers. Back before you grew a conscience." Rachel took a step back. Cheyenne didn't deny it. "I left," he said, "before it went too far." "You started it," Caleb snapped. "You taught me how to move silent, how to slit a man's throat without waking his horse. You don't get to pretend now." Rachel's face was pale. Is it true? Cheyenne's eyes met hers. Yes. Before I knew better. Silence bloomed between them, raw and jagged. Caleb lifted his shotgun. Don't matter anyway. I came for her. Not for your guilt. Cheyenne stepped between them. Caleb's face darkened. You really gonna fight me over some settler girl? She's not yours to take. Neither are you. But here we are. The standoff thickened. Tension crackled like lightning waiting to strike. Then Caleb smiled again, stepping back. You got a day. Then I'm coming back with the whole crew. You and your girl better be long gone, or we'll burn this hollow twice over. He turned, whistled, and the three men rode out like shadows bleeding into the wind. Rachel stood rooted to the ground. Her hands trembled. You rode with him? She asked. For a while. You raided towns. I did what I had to do to survive. She shook her head. You're just like him. No, he said, voice tight. I left. I chose something else. But you didn't tell me. I didn't think I'd have to. Rachel walked back into the ruined saloon and sat down hard on the floorboards. She stared at the broken mirror, her own reflection fractured beyond recognition. Cheyenne didn't follow. He stayed outside, staring into the dust where hoof prints faded. The past was always waiting. Sometimes it came on horseback, bearing your own blood. That night, neither of them spoke. Rachel sat by the fire, arms wrapped tight around herself. Cheyenne cleaned his weapons with slow, deliberate care. When the last spark died in the pit, Rachel finally said, You left him once. You can leave again. Cheyenne didn't look at her. I'm not running, he said. Not this time. She looked up, eyes glistening in the dark. He added softly, not without making it right. She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded once, sharp and reluctant. Then we fight. He met her gaze. We fight. And far down the trail, under a sliver of moon, hoofbeats whispered back through the canyon, carrying war on their heels. Night peeled back slowly, reluctant to surrender its hold on the world. The sky above Silver Hollow bled from black to bruised purple, then into a thin, bitter gray. Cheyenne stood at the edge of the hill above town, long rifle in hand, wind tugging at his coat. Below, the buildings waited in silence, ghosts clinging to timber and stone. Every corner, every rooftop had been considered, every possible approach mapped. Beside him, Rachel tightened the makeshift sling around her shoulder and checked the revolver he had taught her to load just days before. She looked different now, leaner, quieter, fire in her eyes instead of fear. The girl from the wagon trail was gone. In her place stood someone forged in ash. They'll come from the south, Cheyenne said. Caleb always circles in, likes to watch before he strikes. You sure you're ready to kill your own brother? Cheyenne's jaw worked, but no words came. He adjusted the strap across his chest instead. The truth was heavier than any weapon. Rachel stepped close, voice softer now. You told me this land doesn't turn its back on the wounded. What about those it made the wound in? Cheyenne looked at her. Then it's up to us to make something different out of it. They returned to the town and took positions. Her behind a broken stall near the general store, him on the roof of the saloon, a bow within reach, rifle ready. The town held its breath with them. Dust curled through the alleys. A hawk circled above once, then vanished into the clouds. By mid-morning, they came. 5 riders at first, then 7. More than expected. Cheyenne's pulse didn't change. Caleb led them, face hidden behind a cloth mask, but his posture was unmistakable, confident, cocky, sure of the outcome. He dismounted in front of the saloon and drew a long knife from his belt, spinning it in his fingers like a toy. Brother, he called out, don't make me knock. Cheyenne stood slowly on the rooftop edge. You brought more than you needed. Caleb grinned. I didn't bring enough last time. Figured I'd overcompensate. You want her, you come get her. I don't want her, Caleb said, voice sharp now. I want you dead. The girl's just dessert. Before Cheyenne could speak, a shot rang out from one of the riders, too soon, too eager. The bullet missed, striking the upper window of the saloon in a burst of splinters. Cheyenne dropped flat, rifle shouldered, and fired. The first rider fell sideways off his horse, Neck snapped from the impact. Chaos erupted. Rachel fired from cover, hitting a second man in the leg. He screamed and tumbled off his saddle, rolling into a heap behind the water trough. Another gunman dismounted and advanced on her position, firing wild. Cheyenne watched him, waited for the moment he passed the corner of the feed store, then loosed an arrow. It struck just below the ribs, clean and silent. The man dropped without a cry. Rachel's revolver clicked empty. She ducked, reloading with shaking hands, breath coming hard. She could hear them shouting to flank her. Bootsteps pounded against gravel and broken wood. Then Cheyenne was there. He dropped from a saloon roof like a falling shadow, landing with a grunt, and tackled one of the flanking men. They hit the ground in a crash of limbs and fists. The knife came fast, too fast, scraping across Cheyenne's ribs before he reversed it, driving his own blade upward into the man's throat. Blood sprayed. He didn't stop moving. Rachel had never seen a man fight like him. Not wildly, not with rage, but with purpose, every motion honed like a sharpened edge. She aimed again, firing at a fourth man. Missed. A shot tore past her cheek, and she dropped low, breathing in dust and cordite. Her heart raced. Her hands trembled. She thought of her brother's face, her mother's singing, the weight of Cheyenne's hand when she first collapsed into his arms. She stood again and fired. The man crumpled. By now only 3 remained. 2 hung back near their horses, uncertain. The third, Caleb, moved forward alone, shotgun cradled in one hand, revolver in the other. "Cheyenne," he called. "You gonna hide behind the preacher's daughter?" Cheyenne stepped into the street. Blood soaked one side of his shirt, but he held his ground. "No," he said. "Just choosing the right place to kill you." Caleb laughed. "You think I won't shoot you where you stand? You'll try." Rachel started to step out, but Cheyenne raised a hand without turning. A silent command. "Stay." She froze. The brothers circled slowly, boots crunching over dust and glass. "You remember that creek by Big Rock?" Caleb asked. "Where we found that wounded bear. You said we had to put it down clean." "I remember. You handed me the rifle. Said if I was going to kill something, I'd better look it in the eye." Cheyenne's grip tightened on the hilt of his knife. "So do it." Caleb moved first. The shotgun fired. Cheyenne rolled low, the shot grazing his shoulder. He surged up close, slammed into Caleb, and they went down in a tangle of limbs and fury. Rachel watched, heart in her throat, as the 2 men wrestled in the dirt, brothers raised by blood and fire, torn apart by choice. The knife glinted in the light. Cheyenne gained the upper hand, pinned Caleb, and pressed the blade to his brother's throat. Caleb grinned through bloody teeth. "Do it." Cheyenne stared down at him. Rachel stepped forward, voice hoarse. "He doesn't deserve it, but you do. You deserve to choose who you are." Cheyenne hesitated. Then he pulled the blade away. Caleb laughed once, soft, still soft. Then he reached for the pistol tucked in his boot. Rachel fired. The shot hit Caleb in the chest. He jerked once, eyes wide, then slumped back, exhaling in a long, ragged breath. Silence fell. Cheyenne rose slowly, breathing hard, blood staining his hands and chest. The other 2 riders spurred their horses and fled without a word. Rachel walked to him, her gun shaking in her grip. She looked at Caleb's body, then up at Cheyenne. "He was going to kill you." "I know. I didn't mean to." "I know," he repeated, voice low. He reached out and gently lowered her gun. "It's over." She fell against him, burying her face into his chest, and for a long time neither of them moved. The wind swept the street clean around them, carrying away smoke, dust, and the last echo of gunfire. They buried Caleb beneath the edge of the canyon where the grass still grew wild. No cross, no stone, just earth. That night, they sat by a fire made from the ruins of the feed store. Rachel tended his wounds, hands steadier than she expected. He winced only once. "I didn't think I'd make it out," she whispered. "You did. You saved me." "No," he said. "We saved each other." She looked at him, really looked, and saw the lines in his face, the quiet ache behind his eyes, the years carved deep into his soul. She leaned closer, pressing her forehead to his. "I'm not ready to say goodbye." You don't have to. She smiled faintly. So what now? He stared into the fire. We find somewhere no one's watching. Plant roots. Live quiet. Think the world will let us. It doesn't have to. We'll make it. The fire crackled between them. Above, stars blinked awake one by one. As the sky turned to velvet, Cheyenne looked up. In a land that taught me to kill, you reminded me what it means to stay. Rachel laced her fingers with his. And in the ruins of a town that had only ever known fire and loss, something new began to grow. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.